Welcome to Sleep and Absorb. Find a comfortable position, close your eyes, and let yourself relax. Tonight, we explore emotion.
Notice for a moment what you are feeling right now, not what you are thinking, not the content of the thoughts moving through your mind, but beneath the thoughts, at a level that is harder to articulate, what quality of feeling is present? Is there ease here or something heavier? Anticipation of sleep or the residue of a day that has not quite finished releasing you? Something close to contentment or something that has not yet settled? Whatever is there, notice that it is information. Your emotional state right now is not random. It has been shaped by everything that has happened today, by the quality of your interactions, by how well or poorly the day went, according to whatever standards your nervous system applies, by what you ate and how much you moved and how much sleep you had last night, and by processes in your brain and body that are running continuously below the threshold of conscious awareness, assessing, evaluating, preparing you for what might come next. Emotions are not interruptions to the serious business of being a rational person. They are the serious business. They are the primary system by which the brain communicates its assessment of your situation to the conscious mind, and they have been performing this function for far longer than the parts of the brain that produce language and reason have existed. Tonight we spend 20 minutes with emotion. What it is at the biological level, why we have it, and what the science tells us about the relationship between feeling and thinking, that is more interesting and more useful than the old opposition between them. Let your breathing slow, and let whatever is present be present without needing to change it. The question of what an emotion actually is has occupied philosophers and scientists for centuries, and is still, in important ways, unresolved. But the scientific understanding has shifted significantly in recent decades, away from the idea that emotions are fixed, universal, hardwired responses, and towards something more dynamic and more interesting. The classical view, associated most strongly with the psychologist Paul Ekman's work in the 1960s and 70s, held that there are a small number of basic emotions, typically listed as happiness, sadness, anger, fear, disgust, and surprise, that are universal across all human cultures, expressed through the same facial expressions, regardless of where in the world a person was raised, and produced by dedicated neural circuits in the brain. This view had enormous influence. It shaped decades of research, popular psychology, and even the design of emoji. More recent work, particularly that of the neuroscientist Lisa Feldman Barrett, has challenged this model substantially. Barrett's research suggests that emotions are not fixed responses triggered by dedicated circuits, but constructed experiences built in the moment by the brain from a combination of physiological signals from the body, memories of past experiences, and the conceptual categories the brain has available to make sense of what it is feeling. Different cultures construct different emotional categories. The same physiological arousal can be experienced as excitement, anxiety, or anger, depending on context and interpretation. Emotions, in this view, are more like perceptions than reflexes. They are the brain's best guess about what is happening inside and outside the body, constructed from available evidence rather than read directly from reality. Whatever the philosophical status of emotion, its biological reality is not in doubt. Emotions produce measurable, systematic changes in the body that are coordinated by the brain in ways that prepare the organism for specific kinds of action. Fear activates the sympathetic nervous system, increasing heart rate, dilating the pupils, diverting blood from the digestive system to the large muscles, releasing glucose into the bloodstream and heightening sensory alertness. All of this prepares the body for rapid physical action in response to a threat. The response evolved long before the threats it now responds to included job interviews and social media notifications, which is part of why it can feel disproportionate in modern contexts. The hardware is ancient. The software updates have not kept pace. The neurotransmitter dopamine is associated with the anticipation of reward rather than reward itself. It is released in response to cues that predict positive outcomes, motivating approach behavior, driving the pursuit of goals. The pleasure of wanting something is, neurochemically, often more intense than the pleasure of having it. This is why the experience of falling in love, of being in the early stages of pursuit and anticipation, carries an intensity that the settled contentment of an established relationship typically does not match. The dopamine system is calibrated for pursuit, not possession. Oxytocin, sometimes called the bonding hormone, is released during positive social contact, including touch, eye contact, and cooperative activity. It promotes trust, generosity, and social connection. And it is not exclusive to humans. The same neurochemical system that mediates human social bonding is present in virtually all mammals, suggesting that the capacity for social attachment is one of the oldest and most conserved features of the mammalian nervous system. The traditional opposition between emotion and reason. The idea that they are competing forces and that good decision-making requires suppressing or overriding the emotional in favor of the rational has been substantially revised by neuroscience research. The neurologist Antonio Damasio studied patients with damage to the prefrontal cortex that left their reasoning abilities largely intact, but disrupted their capacity to generate emotional responses. The expected result, if emotion and reason are opposed, would be that these patients would make better decisions, freed from the distorting influence of feeling. The actual result was the opposite. Without emotional responses to guide them, the patients became catastrophically poor decision makers. Faced with choices, they could generate endless rational analyses of the options, but could not arrive at a preference. They could not decide what to eat for lunch. They made disastrous financial and personal decisions. The absence of emotion did not liberate their reason. It paralyzed it. Damasio proposed what he called the somatic marker hypothesis. The idea that the body generates emotional signals, somatic markers, that tag potential options with positive or negative valence based on past experience, effectively pre-filtering the option space before conscious deliberation begins. Reason and emotion are not opponents. Emotion is part of the mechanism by which reason operates effectively. What you feel is information, not infallible information. Emotions can be miscalibrated. They can reflect biases and past experiences that are not relevant to the current situation. But dismissing them entirely is not rationality. It is a different kind of error. The skill is not to suppress emotion, but to read it accurately, to understand what it is responding to, and to integrate it with conscious reasoning rather than treating it as noise to be overridden. Come back for a moment to what you are feeling right now. Whatever is there, it is the output of an extraordinarily complex system. Your nervous system assessing the day, integrating signals from your body and your memory and your understanding of your situation, and producing a summary in the form of feeling. It is not arbitrary. It is not a distraction. It is information offered in the only form the deeper parts of your brain know how to communicate. You do not need to analyze it tonight. You do not need to resolve it or act on it or understand it fully. You can simply let it be what it is, a signal from a system that is working on your behalf, and allow it to settle as you move towards sleep. The feelings of the day do not need to be carried into tomorrow. Sleep exists, in part, precisely to process them, to take the emotional residue of the day and work on it in ways the waking mind cannot, consolidating what is useful and releasing what is not so that you can wake to something a little lighter. You are not your emotions, but your emotions are telling you something worth listening to. Just not tonight. Tonight they can rest alongside you. Let your breathing slow. You are safe. You are resting. And everything you felt today was real and valid and already beginning to settle. As it always does. Good night.